Hello, my name is Clark Bishop, and I'm a pulmonary critical care physician. And today we're going to be talking about lifestyle medicine. So I want to tell you a little bit about my journey for lifestyle medicine. I grew up in Springville, Utah, which is just a little bit south of the Provo area. My mother was very interested in trying to have a healthy family. My father was a tire mechanic, but we did have a little farm and raised fresh fruits and vegetables. We had a cow that we would usually butcher a beef in the fall. But as my mother was thinking about how she could have a healthy family, she would do a lot of reading and would really try to focus on eating healthy and having all of us eat healthy. At the time growing up, I was mostly interested in science and scientific validation and proof, and to be honest, I didn't think very much of many of her ideas. Interestingly, over time, I've come to believe many of the things that my mother believed, and the things that she taught us have been scientifically validated. And so we're going to be talking about that today. What are the things that we can do to have health in our life? And I want to start out by talking about the Doctrine and Covenants. In the Doctrine and Covenants, the Lord tells Joseph Smith, you know, I'm warning you that there are problems. There are problems in your environment that could be bad for you. And he talked about it in the context of the hearts of conspiring men in the last days, and their evil and designing. So we'll talk a little bit about that going forward, about what is it that's evil and designing that is disrupting our lives and making our health not as good as it could be. I'm going to go ahead and define lifestyle medicine. So what is lifestyle medicine? Well, lifestyle medicine is evidence-based, and we'll talk about that. Lifestyle therapeutic approaches such as predominantly whole food, plant-based diet, regular physical activity, adequate sleep, stress management, avoidance of risky substances, and other non-drug modalities to treat, oftentimes reverse and prevent the lifestyle-related chronic disease that's all too prevalent. So it doesn't necessarily say that we can't use medications, but it's a focus on things that we can do to try and promote health. Now, having said that, I want to just talk for just a second about what I'm not going to talk about today. And that doesn't mean that these things aren't good or aren't healthy. That's just not the scope of what we consider lifestyle medicine. So we're not going to be talking about herbal medicine, iridology, reflexology, essential oils, energy healing. There are probably some in the audience today who've had those and think that they're great, and that's wonderful. Whatever works is good, and I'm in favor of whatever works. But that's beyond the scope of what we're going to be talking about today. So what we will be talking about is these 6 principles. The 6 principles or pillars of lifestyle medicine, which are the healthy diet, activity, adequate restorative sleep, stress management, avoiding harmful substances, and social interactions. Interestingly, there's another organization, and it's the neurology folks, the American College of Neurology, which has some pillars for brain health. And the pillars for brain health are very similar to the 6 pillars of lifestyle medicine, but they leave out one. They leave out avoiding harmful substances. My suspicion is they'll probably add that in because there are so many neurological conditions that are associated with smoking and drinking. So we have some important questions. What are the lifestyle problems that our patients and providers have? What are the needs of patients and providers? How can patients and providers acquire the adequate knowledge? And what is the evidence supporting those things? We'll touch on some of those things today. And some things to consider, or one of those things would be what is lifestyle medicine? And we've touched on that just to give a definition of it. Also, maybe quality of life, and we'll touch a little bit on quality of life. It's not just how long people live, but also what is the evidence supporting this. Now, in the past, throughout the world, we lived a primarily agrarian society. People were pretty active. Most places had primarily plant-based foods. It was expensive to raise meat, and certainly there was hunter-gathering. But I think in most societies there's a lot more gathering than hunting. And to do all that hunter-gathering, there was a lot of physical activity. But certainly before the days of our automated transportation, then most of us, the way we got around was by walking. Current state of health is quite different. Sugary drinks, sitting on the TV, kind of vegging out. I read a study a while back about why it's helpful for old people like me to have pets, and one of the reasons is because you take the pet out for a walk. But if you're doing like this fellow here, or walking the dog in the car, then that doesn't give you some of the benefits of that. The idea of lifestyle medicine is very old. It goes back all the way to Hippocrates, who lived 500 BC. And what Hippocrates said is, if we could give every individual the right amount of nourishment and exercise, not too much and not too little, we would have found the safest way to health. And so that's 500 years ago. And yet we're still struggling with some of these principles, and that is the right kind of diet, not too little, not too much, and the right kind of activity. And of course now we throw in also some of these other things that we've talked about. Certainly the toxic substances that people use, alcohol and tobacco, and I include in the toxic substances the refined foods, the ultra processed foods that have been shown to be very, very deleterious to us. They turned out to be very calorie dense, but not nutritionally dense. So a lot of different things have changed the world, and all these changes have made it so that they're labor-saving devices. So a lot of the things that used to be done by hand are not done by hand anymore, and they're convenient for us. Certainly, it's a lot more convenient for us now to drive than to walk or ride a horse, and we have television. Television's first appearing 100 years ago, and soon dominated American culture. But all of those things, and these things here, the technology, the cell phone, the smartphone, these things have made us so that we have a more sedentary lifestyle, not nearly as active as we used to be. We want to talk for just a minute about life expectancy and how that has changed. 100 plus years ago, life expectancy in the United States is about 50 years. So now it's roughly 80 years. It's a little bit more for women, a little bit less for men, and those have changed a little bit. We actually had a decline in life expectancy during the COVID years, primarily because of COVID, but also some of the other stresses that came along with COVID. Let's see. Yeah, that's good. Okay, so here are some of the things that have changed over the years with life expectancy. Infectious disease used to be a huge killer, and I'll show you a graph on that in a few minutes. It used to be that was the #1 killer, and it's just not anymore. It did take a big jump during the COVID years, and that's come back down to baseline. Heart disease, coronary artery disease, is still the #1 killer in the United States. Heart disease, of course, is related to obesity and to diabetes. This is the graph that I mentioned we'd be coming to. This shows the death rate for infectious disease in the United States from 1900 through about the turn of the century. So it's roughly 100 years. And what that shows is it used to be very high during the influenza pandemic in 1918. It had a big jump and it came back down. Now, we did have a pretty good jump here from during the COVID years, where we had over 1 million people in the United States. This is annual, but we had over 1 million people in the United States. die from COVID, but it's still much, much less than it used to be. And of course, with the addition of antibiotics, then things that used to be very common deaths, pneumonia, septic shock, so on, those are much improved compared with what they were 70, 80 years ago. Well, even I think for one of the things that I've done a lot of work with in my job is working with patients with septic shock, including pneumonia, and we've had dramatic improvements in those just in the past 20 years. This graph here again shows some of the percentages of death by different causes of death in 1900 versus causes of death in 1997. We've had 25 more years since then, but it's interesting to notice here. So pneumonia, tuberculosis, other infectious diseases like diarrhea and gastroenteritis, and heart disease was clear down here, number 4. Now, you scroll forward 100 years, heart disease is number 1 cause. Then we've got cancer, stroke, chronic lung disease like emphysema and COPD, and so on. So these infectious diseases have basically dropped off the map here, with the exception of HIV and HIV-related issues. So a big shift in what was causing people to die 100 years ago versus now. And the thing that's interesting about these things here is these things here are highly influenced by the things that we do, the things that we eat, the things that we ingest, what our personal lifestyle is. And so that's what we'll be talking about going forward here. These are just the numbers that kind of emphasize that. So what are the numbers of deaths in the United States? This is a little over 10 years old. Heart disease, that would be coronary artery disease, congestive heart failure, valvular heart disease, and so on. It's just about almost 600,000 people. Cancer, same kind of thing. And then we have other kinds of things like chronic obstructive lung disease and emphysema, so on. And you can see the breakdown of these. There is a lot of overlap with this and this, because one of the big risk factors for coronary artery disease is diabetes, influenza, pneumonia. The death rates for these vary from year to year depending on what the virus is doing here. How long are we done there?
13 minutes.
Okay.
That's what we've done.
Okay. All right. These are similar statistics, just new years here. I want to talk about some of these things, of course, are related to our genes, and we can't change our parents, we can't change our grandparents, but there are some non-genetic factors which contribute to death in the United States, and these are some of the non-genetic factors that can make a huge difference here. So big contributor to premature death and to disability is tobacco. At least 400,000 deaths per year. This is probably a low estimate, by the way. Diet and activity patterns, about 300,000 deaths. Alcohol, 100,000 deaths. And then we get down into maybe some of the infectious causes. But all of these, and I think we've had an increase in the use of illicit drugs and overdoses, so that's increased. But that goes to about 1 million deaths per year that are from preventable causes. And so whatever we can do with within these activities here to cut those down, then that's going to delay those deaths and give people more good years. This is now global rather than just United States. We're seeing the same kind of thing in global deaths here. I want to talk about some of the studies that support having a healthy lifestyle. This is a study that was done in Sweden, very large study, and it was a prospective study, meaning that they enrolled people and then they followed over a long period of time, over 20,000 Swedish men, and to be enrolled in the study, they had to be in good health. So they start out with healthy people, and then they looked at them, and they looked to see how many people had a healthy diet, moderate alcohol, no smoking, physical activity. And for physical activity for them meant 40 minutes per day, exercising, or at least 1 hour a week. I think most of the time what we're recommending now is 30 minutes a day and at least 150 minutes a week. But this is a moderate exercise goal, and no abdominal adiposity. That means belly fat, and for that the cutoff for that was 37.4. So these are the things that they looked at to say, does this make any difference? And this is what they found. So they found that this was the death rate, or it's not death rate, actually it's myocardial infarction. So the number of people who have heart attacks per 100,000 people, if they had no healthy behaviors, this is where they started out. It's about 1,000 per 100,000, or about one in 100 would have some kind of a cardiac event. If they had one healthy behavior, it dropped off dramatically. 2 a little bit more, 3 a little bit more, 4 a little bit more, 5. Look at the difference between those who had 5 healthy behaviors versus no healthy behaviors. Their death rate was a fraction, about 80% less. So there's a huge difference by doing each of these things. Interestingly, there's not a lot of difference here. They do go down a little bit, but if you get all 5 of their healthy behaviors, then they had a dramatic decline in their death rate. So is that 20 minutes? 2 more to go? Okay, all right. Let's keep going here. So these are some of the risk factors for coronary artery disease. Risk factors for coronary artery disease are these: hyperlipidemia, high cholesterol and high triglycerides, high fats, hypertension, being overweight and obese, and those are different by definition. Some people might say, well, it's the same thing, but overweight has a certain definition, obesity has another definition. Obesity means more than overweight. Tobacco use, physical activity, stress, unhealthy diet, diabetes. So all of these things are risk factors, and all of these things weigh in to the things that we've been talking about, that is having a healthy lifestyle. So obesity in the United States we're going to show some slides that show obesity in the United States over a period of time. And we have some of the states we don't have any data on for this, but what this basically shows is that every 10 years, the amount of obesity in the United States has gone up from 1990. So we're, like here in Utah, we're less than 10%, but by 2000, we're 15 to 20%, and by 2010, we are 20 to 24%. So a big increase in obesity during this period of time. And by the way, these slides show continued increase in obesity in the United States. So thank you very much. This is my little test drive. I'm going to update the slides, but that's kind of going to be my teaching style. We'll also probably have some discussion, and I'm certainly open for discussion and so on. But my focus is going to be to try and help people understand more about the whole plant-based diet, about exercise, about how important these things are, and the other pillars of lifestyle medicine. That is those are the avoiding harmful substances, adequate sleep, stress management, and if we have time, we'll maybe even practice some yoga or something like that, and social connections. So thank you for considering this application, and I hope that I'll be able to present an hour at Education Week, and maybe the year after that, maybe we'll do five things. So that's the end for me.